Hello everyone, good morning. Can you hear me? Hello, can you guys hear me clearly? Just put it on the chat if you can. We just open.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
great. Hi Swapnil, hi Srinivas, hi Shrikant, Shivam. Okay, awesome. All right, so cool. So let me get started. Thank you all for joining in um, on time. And we had to do a little bit of reshuffle because Devmitra had some emergency. However, I think this is a very important session that all of you should know about. I am doing it slightly differently. I'm not sure. Anyone who's attended any of my sessions before, just say yes if you have. Great.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I think what I'm doing is a lot different than what I have done before. Because as and when I'm talking to so many of you every other day, I feel it becomes even more important to keep you informed on many other aspects of an MBA that is important. So yes, I will reiterate some aspects, but I've touched upon generally focusing on what is the market trend right now, what is happening generally in different career options. I've picked the top ones, top sectors right now, so that pretty much most of you will fall into that category. If there is anything else, obviously we can, discuss later and deep dive into other aspects also later, right? So I know there is a lot of anxiety around what's happening in US, and generally, there's always two sides of the coin where there are some people who will say things are going very well, and there are some people who will say that things are really bad. So it's always there. But what I want all of you to understand is go well informed in this whole journey, and that's exactly my motive is. That's exactly Crackable's motive is. In every session that we are focusing on, we want to make sure that you go very well informed in this journey. All right. So yeah, MBA applications is rising. There is a lot more people applying even this year, because when you look at recession, and this happened to us in 2008 also, when the Lehman Brothers meltdown happened, where a lot of people look at doing an MBA as a time to ride the wave, to make sure that they focus on using this time of recession to upskill themselves. And I think this is a very good time for you guys to look at it, because I mean, recession, no recession, I think what is more important is things are changing right now. With so in every sector, things are changing. So it might be a great time for you guys to look at it, and look at it very objectively and say where you fit in, right? So that's pretty much the focus of this session today. We'll deep dive on each and every aspect. I'll talk to you about it. So let me just give you a little bit of background about myself. I'm Shreekala. I'm one of the co-founders of Crackverbal. I'm also the chief mentor. I work specifically one-on-one with a lot of people who are applying to MBA more from your mentorship perspective this year. I worked with many thousands of people, but last year I mean, if you follow me on LinkedIn, we have had admits to Kellogg, INSEAD, LBS, ISB, IIMs, Tepper, um, UNC, a lot of top schools, Oxford, Cambridge, right? So we've had a lot of top schools where people have gotten, which also means that I make sure that everybody I work with uh, are going in a very, what I would say, a very planned way in every aspect of what is important in their application, right? So that's pretty much what my focus is. Let me guys just get started on what we want to focus on in this session. I'm going to talk about market trends. I'm going to talk about the timelines, and I'm going to talk about what is it that you need to focus on when you're actually planning your MBA, right? And I'm sure you have this, but what I will do is I'll talk about specific decision points that you need to focus on. And at every point, I will ask you if you have any questions, feel free to type in, or or in the end, we will have a Q&A session where you can unmute yourself and ask questions also, right? So that's pretty much what I want to focus on in today's session. So, yeah, so Dhruv, today's session will be focused more on MBA, but MIM will be similar. I'm not saying MIM is very different, though the roles that you get through after MIM might be slightly different than what MBA, but what is happening in the market and what happens in different sectors pretty much remain the same, right? So, yes, roles might be slightly more junior compared to what people get into an MBA, because most people who apply for MIM are people who have lower level of experience, right? So I'll talk about it, but deep diving more focused on MBA, but this is relevant to you also, so don't worry about that, right? All right, so I'm going to talk about market trends and opportunities in all these sectors today. One is I'm going to talk about tech and AI. So maybe all of you, I'm sure I've done this exercise before, but there are a lot more new people also who joined over the last couple of weeks. Maybe you can type in what industry you're coming from, whether you're coming from tech, finance, consulting, healthcare, sustainability, if you're an entrepreneur or any other sector, just type in what industry you're joining, you are, what is your background currently. And if you're a student, just put student, just type in on the chat window what is the industry you're coming? Okay, Sham is from tech, Amitav, tech, others, consulting, Ananya, okay, Dhruv tech, okay, media and entertainment, okay, others, marketing, okay, investment banking, awesome. So I think I'll put finance and fintech somewhere around the investment banking space. All right, manufacturing. Okay. So I think there'll be some bit of this everywhere when we are talking about these specific sectors. So let me go through it one by one. So what I'm going to talk about, and this is something I always tell everyone when we start with the whole application process, is that, and this is something maybe I've spoken before also, you are at point A right now and you want to go to point B, and this point B is your post MBA career goal. Defining that post MBA career goal according to what is happening in the industry becomes extremely important. You cannot talk about a role which maybe even doesn't exist. You cannot talk about a role which does not require an MBA. You cannot talk about a role which is maybe even obsolete in today's terms, right? So it becomes very important for you to deep dive and research and read up about the roles that you want to get into post MBA. And that is what will make tops B school. So I'm focusing only on top B schools, and that is the scope of my session today. When I say top B schools, pretty much all the ones that accept GMAT scores, right? Because obviously all of you are going through a GMAT preparation, which also means that the level of the kind of people you will be studying with in any school that you apply to is going to be slightly higher up than the two-tier colleges. Because when you look at two-tier colleges which do not require a GMAT or a GRE or any of the test prep, you understand that the only thing they require is maybe an IELTS and a TOEFL. So the bar or the requirement or I would say the benchmark for you to get into those programs is very low if there is no GMAT and GRE, right? The moment there is a school that accepts GMAT and GRE, remember it is a high level, it is a top tier school, or at least one of the top tier schools. It is a school that requires some level of benchmark or some level of, I would say, there is a level for you to get in. Not anybody and everybody can get in, which also makes it slightly competitive, which also makes it worthwhile for you to invest in, because that's the whole point, right? You are not doing an MBA just for knowledge. You're obviously doing an MBA to for a career growth. Obviously, you're looking at doing an MBA or MIM or any of these programs that you're looking at from a top school for a career growth, for a better next 20, 30 years of your working life, for better money, for better ROI. All these things are absolutely given, and these are the basic things that you are expecting from this particular program. It is one of the biggest investments that you're going to do for your career, which also means that, and pretty much maybe one of the last degrees that you might be doing, which also means that it is going to be an expensive investment and an expensive proposition. So I want you to make sure that you keep your eyes and ears open on all aspects to understand what is happening in this industry and where would you actually fit in. Right. So what I've done is I've kind of picked up 6 sectors where typically most post MBA roles fall in. Even if you're looking at manufacturing sector, or even if you're looking at marketing, or even if you're looking at transportation, somewhere it can fall into consulting, somewhere it can fall into tech, somewhere it can fall into fintech or finance or anything, or sustainability also, right? So it might fall into any of these categories. Obviously, if there is something specific, we can deep dive into that, in later sessions. But this is what I want to focus on. One is tech and AI. So what's happening in the tech and AI sector? What are the companies? What is it that they are looking at? What are the roles that you can eye for more from a post MBA career goal perspective? What are the kind of companies that hire? Again, India, abroad. I've kind of made it like a generic slide right now. Second is obviously finance. What is happening in finance? What is happening in fintech? In fact, yesterday I was speaking to somebody who's completely focusing on GTM for fintech companies across India, Middle East, Asian countries, right? So when I was talking to her, there's so much more that is happening in fintech. Fintech is not just UPI, right? There's so many other things that are included in that. So what's happening in those roles, what happening in those sector is something that we'll quickly take a look at. Consulting, what's happening in the post pandemic now today in the AI space. What is also happening is, if you look at it right now, you are looking at it as, say for example, so how many of you over here have been using AI at work? Just say yes, say no, say yes, no. Right. Okay, perfect. So, which means all of you are looking at AI in, some or the other way at work, which also means that you have to understand that this is just you. When you look at businesses, every department, every sector needs to be trained. Every sector needs to be aligned to this space to improve their productivity, efficiency, and cost. And consulting is coming in big over here because all these top consulting firms are helping large enterprise customers to get better. I know some of you over here are also doing that for your own company, right? So consulting is definitely big. There are a lot of challenges that it comes over here in terms of compliance, security, a lot of those aspects, and that's what all these Microsofts of the world are trying to solve. Then obviously healthcare is another aspect that is a very important factor again. A lot of people, lot of countries are focusing on value based. Yes, driving automation has become a key KPI. Perfect. Healthcare, again, coming back to the healthcare part, healthcare is something where a lot of countries are focusing on value-based healthcare. Lot of companies that have kind of expanded enough on developing countries are also looking at other developed countries are also looking at underdeveloped or developing countries where they can expand their focus. That's also happening in the healthcare innovation space. Sustainability is another thing. ESG is big. I'll give you some, examples of some people who have been working in the ESG space currently: climate tech, green energy sector. So many things that are happening in the sustainability space. And finally, more as an entrepreneur also, because that's also something, is a space that most post MBA careers also get into. VC space, that is also something that people want to look at. What's happening in the funding space, that's also something that you would want to know. And there are chief of staff roles, EIR kind of roles. So let's look at all these aspects. So I'll go one by one, look at each and every role that comes with each and every sector. And what I want you to also do is, when you go back and think about it, by the way, this is also streamed on YouTube, so you can always go back and watch this video on YouTube too. So what I want you to keep thinking while you're going through this process is, which are the kind of roles that you believe you will fit in best? What is the kind of strengths or leverage that you have based on your current profile? And what is it that you believe are your blind spots or your area of improvement that you need to focus on, or what you want to pitch to a B school of how an MBA can help you to get to that next level, right? So again, rough idea, we don't need to have a bullseye top list, but keep this in mind while you're growing through this session, right? So that's something that I want you to kind of think about when you go through this, right? Now, let's look at the first one, which is what are the tech roles, which is more from an AI MBA roles. Um, Obviously, there is the AI product manager. Again, every company, like for example, if you're looking at OpenAI itself, there are so many products that they are coming up. Every other day, there is a new model that is coming up. Obviously, there's someone who's sitting and thinking, there's some product manager who's planning a roadmap for these, right? Every other day, I'm not sure if you follow any of these tools. So if you look at so there is this website called There is an AI for Everything or something like that. There is a website called that. There is an AI for this, or there is something called Futurepedia. So there are a lot of these websites, if, or even if you look at Product Hunt for that matter, every other day there is a new tool that is coming up. Every other day there is something new that is coming up. O3 currently, the ChatGPT O3 model is amazing. The kind of research that it is able to do is something like, if any kind of research, if you guys are looking at, and if you had a paid O3 model, deep research is amazing. It really gives in a lot of insight in terms of what you can, what is the kind of information you can look at. So yeah, so many great things that are happening in this space in terms of products. So AI product manager is something that you can definitely look at. If you look at, more from an MBA fit perspective, obviously big tech, they are looking at this SaaS-based scale-ups. That is again, like I said, every other day there are, so many new products and new tools that are coming up. There is very high demand currently for people who can talk both code and business. Because obviously that's what is the requirement of today's world, right? Where you need to understand the technicalities of it also. At the same time, you also need to know what you're talking about more from a business perspective. So that's definitely something that is a role that you're looking at. The other thing is the AI strategy consultant, people who can build roadmaps, people who can run pilots, people who can upskill teams. If you look at top consulting firms like McKinsey, BCG, that is something that they are looking at. The AI spend in these in companies is going really high. If you look at the number over here, so wait, this thing is blocking. Right? So it's looking at a 40 billion by 2025. So that is the kind of scope that you're looking at. Obviously, AI business development, this is again the need of the hour. You need to identify revenue streams. You need to identify how partnerships can be done, price offerings can be done. If any of you are already in a business development space, or any of you are already in a space where you're talking directly to customers, and you're also making sure that you are upselling things or figuring out that what is it that your company can provide in terms of a solution to these businesses, that could be something that is really going in big in terms of post MBA career goal space. Cloud providers which are launching AI specific solutions, if any of you are part of Google Cloud or Amazon AWS, or the need of the cloud servers and generally the server space that is required with AI also coming in with AI solutions. So that is one big space that people are looking at. And then obviously more from a governance perspective, uh, this is getting more and more important. Everybody is looking at managing costs. Everybody is looking at modernizing their systems. So what is required to create cost-effective programs is something that an AI operations director is also looking at, right? So these are all goals that you can look at more from a post MBA career space. If you look at any of these companies, so see, these, I mean, what I have generalized over here are generic terms. This can change. Like, for example, in Microsoft, there is no product manager, it's more program managers, but they do the same job. So the terminologies might be different across different companies, but what you will do or what you would want to kind of pursue more from your future career perspective, it can fall into any of these buckets, right? So what you will do, where the MBAs will fit, and why is it important more in this space, in this particular market, also becomes a very important thing that you might want to kind of completely look at. Right? Any questions here? Another one obviously is an AI ethics officer.
Shreekala, hi, Shreekala Swapnil here. I have a question. Now, if a person, so like my case, I am actually working on the emerging digital technologies and basically AI, ML, and DL in my organization, will that be counted as an advantage when I apply to the MBA colleges?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you also, so when you look at it more from your own career journey perspective, look, so this is a question that I ask most people, right? So look at it from two directions. One, you say organically, what is your career growth? What are the roles that you will get into if you don't do an MBA? Have like a career, have like a very clear understanding of that, and then put an MBA in middle, and then say, okay, now what is the kind of different opportunities that you can get in this space? What happens is typically, I mean, I'm not sure how it might be relevant to you, but right now with the kind of expertise you have, and if it is more like a technical expertise, if you do like a non-MBA kind of a role, you'll just grow more on your technical expertise, right? Every time you'll just have to leverage what you already know to do more of it. Whereas an MBA can
Mhm.
actually give you an exposure to maybe different industries also, right? So that is what could be a pitch, and definitely it will be a great value add to pitch yourself to any of these B schools. In fact, honestly speaking, this year, a lot of people who applied to Kellogg, I saw that most people who had actually worked on anything related to AI and product were the people who got through. Right. So I'm not saying, I mean, more from a competitiveness perspective. So it did help. I'm not saying it did not help. So it definitely be something that is a leverage that you have when you're looking at
Okay.
the steps.
So, my next question. Will the if I am able to create a story out of whatever I have done in my employment history, will that add up to my essays, or will that add up to my
Yes,
profile per se?
absolutely. Absolutely. It will.
For example, I'll tell you one more addition. So basically, I work in oil and gas space with a second largest refinery of this country, and we have helped the refinery avoid shutdowns or increase their gross refining margins. And basically, we are indirectly, I have helped the I contributed to the energy security of India. So will this appeal the admissions committee in any manner?
Anything that shows progression will appeal to the admissions committee. So, don't worry about that. See, it's all about how you kind of put it in alignment to what you want to do, right? So, we'll take specific profile related questions. It's a very genuine question, what you mentioned, but we'll take specific profile related questions maybe at the end of the session.
Sure, sure.
What
Sure,
I
sure.
want, yeah, what I want to tell you is that anything that adds value and showcases progression, leadership, initiative, your understanding of the industry, your depth of knowledge will be of value, right? So, again, see, B schools are okay. Let's look at this. What is the rationale behind why B schools want people with 2 years plus experience, specifically for good MBA programs, right? Now, the reason why they are looking at experience level people is because they want to make sure that when you come into a class, or when you are in middle of all these people with different kind of experience, you should be able to add value to discussions, case study discussions and stuff like that, right? So what they also want is they want people who have some level of depth in terms of their own industry experience, right? So anything around that will be of great value. In fact, the interviews are where your test is tested for that. In fact, I am Ahmedabad. If you see, there is one very specific section that they have as part of their interview where they give you a topic or a case study and they ask you to discuss on it. Why do you think they want this? Because they truly believe that anyone who will be able to talk about it in a very logical manner is someone who would actually succeed in their MBA program, right? So that's pretty much what they are testing in terms of what they are trying to evaluate as part of this program, as part of their programs too. So anything of like that will definitely help. It's how you actually put it across and how you bring in that clarity in terms of your narrative is what will be extremely important when you plan this as a next step, right? Any other questions more in this space till I move on to the next role? So I'm talking about the tech space, which is tech and AI, where there are a lot more options. I've just kind of put down for 4 or 5 of them over here. But these are the most, high level known one options that are, possible. Then let's look at fintech. Now let's look at what is happening in the fintech industry. So, someone mentioned investment banking. There are people who are working with companies like Razorpay or PhonePay or any of the so many UPI kind of companies that are coming up. So many companies that are focusing on forex. There are so many companies that are focusing on other aspects of I would say import export that is happening and all the transaction that is happening across the world, right? Now, this ecosystem is also changing rapidly. And it is changing rapidly in a very, very fast pace because, again, people's needs are changing. The way every country is looking at growing is changing. All the changes that is happening generally in the economy is, see, when you look at a simple thing like a tariff, right, that is implemented by the US, you have to understand that there is a lot of ripple effect of that particular tariff on a lot of other things that are happening in the world. It's not only on the import export sector. There might be some compliance related stuff. There are changes in supply chain that people have to focus on. So when you look at just one small thing, the repercussion is a lot across industries. So if you look at it from a business perspective, if you are an entrepreneur or if you are a CEO of say Stripe or Shopify or any JP Morgan or Deloitte or any of these big shot companies, you have to think as a leader. You have to think forward. You have to think that, okay, how am I going to de-risk these kind of things that are happening either with my clients or my own business, right? So that becomes something that is a very important, and that is the role that you have to grow up to more in a future perspective, where you as a leader is able to think through what are the kind of things you can do to save your business or save your client's business, right? So that is the journey what an MBA can take you after. Once you're done with your MBA, the kind of roles that you want to get into, these are the things that you want to learn more in future to understand that this is what I want to get to more from a future perspective, right? So if you look at fintech, there's the digital banking transformation manager. A lot of banks are so most banks have a digital transformation team in-house in their banks itself. And the role of this digital transformation team is to focus on number one, optimize various paper-based or other aspects of the processes that they are looking at. Like for example, I was working with someone who was in a digital transformation team at JP Morgan. He went on to do his he's doing his getting in, he's got into ISB this year. So he was telling me that his entire job is to focus on one, looking at different processes across JP Morgan and looking at, okay, how do we optimize this system? So there are multiple things, right? For loans there is documentation, for there are a lot of these compliance related stuff that banks have. So his focus is to how do we improve this. So one is they do like a small, what do you say, a trial in the internal India region, and then they have to also figure out how this is implemented across the globe. So that takes a lot of thinking through of figuring out that what are the dependencies, reaching out to the right kind of stakeholders. All that is also a very important factor that you need to think of more from a role perspective, right? And more importantly, you also have to understand that, okay, now one of the biggest change, like margin pressure. When I say margin pressure, it's like this. So a lot of these companies take loans, right? They have to take, they take millions and dollars of loans. Now, what happens is every loan that is taken also has to plan a payoff period, right? So businesses work with the banks to figure out that what are the timelines. It's like any investment or any firm that is in, or any company or any person that is investing in any company. Banks are doing the same thing, right? So what happens is this margin pressure is figuring out that if a default happens, or if there is a delay in this due to some market related regulation or something which impacts, whether there is a war or whether there is, there's so many other things that impact the economy of different countries, right? How will the bank kind of manage this is something that they have to think through, right? So these digital transformation managers have to think about those aspects also. Next is, say, for example, the other aspect of it is finance product managers. What kind of products can you design? What are the new things that you can have? What are the kind of revenue shares that you can have? What are the kind of clients you want to look at? Say, for example, if you look at, let me pick any simple, like if you know, Razorpay is one of the companies, which is a fintech company, or Paytm, or any of these things, right? Look at it of how, or even Cred for that matter, look at how they have created very interesting and very innovative revenue models in itself, right? When you look at Cred, you realize that there is, they look at their revenue model, it's crazy, right? How they have looked at, reward system as their revenue model, right? Or if you look at Paytm, I'm not sure who actually goes and shops on Paytm, but I only use it for UPI transactions, that too sometime when our, maybe Google Pay or Phone Pay doesn't work. But Paytm also has different, they have B2B, B2C, they are also looking at international markets. There's so many products that they have, insurance, there's so many other things, daily electricity payment and stuff like that. So many things that they are involved in. Like that, there's someone sitting and designing, there's someone sitting and thinking that what are the things that we can do to increase the LTV, which is the lifetime value of a customer from the product that we already have, right? So this is again one space that you could look at more for as a finance product manager. Another thing that is going big in the finance space is the buy now, pay later kind of a model. Again, this is forecasted to like a $3.7 trillion by 2030. So obviously there's Apple Pay, PayPal. Again, how do you balance growth and the risk associated with it? How do you, when you're looking at global, you also have to look at the compliance aspect of it. How do you kind of look at doing that? That becomes a very important factor for you. So those things are also something that maybe a risk manager would look at. I work with someone who was working with Deloitte as a risk manager. Now her entire job was, when you're looking at large transactions or large businesses, her job is to figure out that what are the kind of risks that are associated in each of these businesses, and what are the regulations that they really need to follow in each of these geographies or sectors or whatever business that they are looking at, right? So that something becomes an extremely important thing. Again, with whatever, with the more and more compliance you had, there are more and more, issues, or the more and more risks that are associated with these systems. So when they are looking at trillions and millions of dollars of transactions and businesses across different companies, it becomes even more important for them to think through these risks and figure out how they will kind of mitigate those risks, right? So that's something that they look at. ESG finance strategies, like companies like BlackRock, again, a lot of green fintechs are coming where their focus is on how to make sustainability as their main goal. You will see that a lot of these companies, so when you say green bonds, right? So what are green bonds? Green bonds are basically when you're working with companies whose mandate is focusing on environment friendly and sustainability business, right? So green bonds are more to focus on those kind of companies. So what is the kind of investment that goes into these green bond kind of companies? That becomes a very important factor. So this is again a space that you would want to look at. This is again a space that could interest you if you are from a finance fintech kind of a background. Then obviously digital wealth products. So this is more like wealth management, wealth asset management. This year I worked with someone who was in Bermuda, and he was working with a wealth asset management firm. Right now his job was, he was working with these, in US there are people who have these millions of dollars in retirement funds. These are like, maybe, they themselves were in big shot roles and all that, and these are people who are 70, 80-year olds. They have a lot of money, and their focus is that how do I manage my wealth, how do I kind of, so his job was to allow each of these clients, so he was looking at around $250 million worth clients, and his job was to figure out that, okay, how do we personalize the portfolios, where the investment should happen, where it should not happen, identifying the risk appetite of the people who is working with. So here I'm talking about individuals, but there are also companies, there are family offices. There's so many things. I mean, an investment banker would know this better, right? So lot of things that happen more from a wealth management space also, that is also something that you could look at. So that's also an area. So most people who are already in a wealth management space or already in a finance space could also think of this as an option, right? Next is obviously consulting. This is hot. This is something that most people are always looking at. uh, you are also looking at, so if you look at all these companies like MBB, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Accenture, Deloitte, AT Kearney, Quantum Black, PwC, EY Parthenon, Deloitte, all these are, so like AT Kearney and Deloitte. So McKinsey, BCG, Bain might be the top tier, then you have AT Kearney, Deloitte, Accenture in the second tier. So again, lot of aspects that are happening in the consulting space. Yes, there is a little bit of, I would say, this year, I'm talking about 2025, for people who graduated this year, are facing a little bit of, I would say, the challenge more from a consulting space, because a lot of consulting companies are just optimizing a lot of things right now, right? So it's not that there will not be a need for management consultant. There's always be, because that brain, that mind is always going to be required. But what they are trying to do is they are trying to kind of refine a lot of systems to figure out that how do we kind of, like for example, if you look at how the whole, how the whole consulting space works, right? So if you, I'm just putting into layman terms, I think somebody, or Ananya, or someone who's already in a consulting space would know this better. So typically what happens is there's a client, and the client is looking at, say, an go to market strategy, or they want to fix their operational cost optimization that they want to do. So for that to happen, if you look at the flow, there's some level of data and analysis that you have to do in terms of what's happening historically, what are the impact, what are the parameters that actually impact this kind of a business. Once you do that, then you create a model, you think through it. Once you create those, with those data, you create a model, you go to your partner or your management consultant who puts their thoughts on how this operational optimization can work, and then they pitch it to their client, and the client looks at it. Then there is some projection around 3 months, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years kind of down the line of how this has to work, what are the factors that are impacting them. So all this is typically the flow of how a consulting assignment works, right? Now what happens here, what is the level of improvement, or what these companies are looking at is more from a data point of view, right? How many people are really needed in this data collection team? Most be like Bain and all have these data collection teams whose job is to look at data from various sources. Now, if you look at it, that entire band of people can be AI driven, right? So you hardly would need people at the data collection aspect of it. You'll still need a management consultant. You might still need an analyst who looks at it, but a lot of it can be optimized. So maybe at a point where maybe 5 or 10 analysts are required, maybe it's become half, right? So, but at the same time, what companies are also, and these consulting companies are also able to deliver things faster. So they are also looking at all these aspects, because when you deliver things faster, you're also getting in more business. You can also work with a lot more clients. So that's also something that is happening in this space. So, um, that's happening in the consulting space. So yes, you have an AI or a data analytic consultant who's looking at, how you can look at data and create models around it. Or there is a sustainability advisor. Again, I in fact, there's someone who specifically worked with, I was working with, who worked in Bain, where her job was to look at ESG, to create an entire new ESG business for Bain. But her project was to identify that what are the parameters that actually impact specific companies who want to get into this sector, right? So it was very important for Bain to even pitch to companies that, hey, we can do EHG consulting for you, but these are the things that we are going to look at when we are looking at helping you with the ESG consulting part, right? So this is again a huge space that you can look at. If that interests you, that could be something that you could look at. and obviously supply chain resilience expert. Like I said, post pandemic, obviously with the disruption, there's so many changes that happened in supply chain. In fact, this year I was there was this guy I was working with for who was in the Apple supply chain, and trust me, he was so frustrated with the whole Trump and the China, tariff related issue, because every damn product that Apple is focusing on was, create. There were timeline issues, there were supply chain issues, costs were going high. So the whole product was in a mess, and they work on products 2 years in advance. So what is going to release 2 years later is what they work on. And everything was in a mess. And he was so frustrated that he had, no time to even think of what essays to focus on, right? So we moved his application to R1 this year. He could not apply. But what I'm trying to tell you is these are the things that impact roles. Right. So as an MBA, these are the kind of challenging, interesting challenges that you would be able to work in, because these are the things that typically a good top school and a good program can help you get to in terms of the kind of roles you want to apply to, right? So that is something that you can look at. Any questions so far before I get into the healthcare? So that any questions that is coming to your mind, say yes, no.
Ma'am,
Yeah, please, Amita.
yeah, ma'am. So, just my question is that just like the roles are getting transformed in tech side because of AI, is there something like that happening in the consulting or any other sector as well?
Yes. So see, the problem statement changes, right? Because of the businesses, the challenges that a business is facing. So ultimately, what does consulting do? Consulting is solving some problem of a business, right? Now the problem statement of the businesses are changing. Now, what was like, for example, now, if they say that operationally, for my process for it to happen from X to Y used to take, say, 7 months, right? What can you do to improve my cost and efficiency using AI and implement it for me? And also make sure that you upskill my team for that, right? So the business problems are definitely changing because of the whole, business, the whole environment of how these businesses are working also changing, right? So at every space there is some or the other changes that is happening. I'm not saying, so see, the whole idea is consulting means solving a business problem. Now it could be a marketing business problem, it could be a finance business problem, it could be a consulting or a operational business problem, it could be a go to market strategy business problem, it can be any kind of business problem, right? So, and with the diversity of the industries and the business there are, I mean, once you get into it, you'll be mind blown in terms of the kind of challenges and interesting challenges that these people work on. And the larger the scale, the more complex and the more interesting it is to solve, right? So those are the things that you will eventually get to as in when you grow in the career. But yes, because of the whole, we call it the VUCA world, right? Which is a very volatile business world that is happening right now with this, all these new things happening. This necessarily not only AI, it's based on a lot of things that are changing in the industries, right? So for everything, every business has to keep changing. It has to keep kind of figuring out, okay, what can we do next in this space, right? So that's also something that as a consultant, you will have to start thinking based on the kind of project you get into, right? Did I answer your question, Amita?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other question?
Ma'am, just curious, ma'am, are the colleges also adapting or modifying their courses to integrate AI learning?
Yes, every school is, and it is a matter. In fact, one thing that when you pick a school, that is something you have to look at. In fact, just to give you an example of ISB itself, just last year they introduced 60 new electives in, across different topics, but obviously AI was one of the major part of what they are adding in. So yes, all colleges are adding that. In fact, a lot of people who have got through an MBA, who are starting their MBA this year, a lot of them have these, they have these pre-MBA courses that need to do. Quite a few schools are introducing those pre-MBA courses to get them, doing some kind of course on AI or something like that. They're asking them to do it before they even start the program, right? So yes, it's absolutely there. They are teaching them how to think. In fact, tomorrow's session, I want all of you to attend by Arun, where we are going to focus on what is the kind of mindset that is required when you're looking at a management career, right? And this is like a mandate, since all of you are already looking at AI as a space. What also happens is maybe your view of how you are using AI might be very in some cases might be restricted to your role, right? What we want to also focus on is the kind of mindset you need to have, because when you go into an MBA program, you might want to look at where all, in fact, so there's this person, Karan, who I was speaking to, who's doing a master's in education at Harvard. Last week I was speaking to him and I was asking him that what's happening and what do you do in this particular course. So he was talking about how they are giving case studies, and they are asked of what kind of prompts and how did they use AI to think to create that assignment, right? That is the kind of approach Harvard is taking today, right? So he said the professor was looking into my prompting, he was looking into my thinking, how I thought through the whole process of how I was looking at a case study. So those are the things that they were looking at when he was looking at the kind of assignments they were doing at Harvard, right? So every school is definitely looking at, I mean, they have no chance. They have no other option. They have to adapt to it, right? So every school is obviously adapting to it. They are, it's extremely important for them to add it to the curriculum. You don't need to worry. Every top school will be looking at it, especially the school that is accepting GMAT, GRE will definitely make sure they focus on looking at what kind of new electives they can add into the curriculum, and how they can leverage this whole space to get people who are currently doing their MBA, upskill to the new world of what they are looking at, right? So yeah, so that's something you don't really need to worry too much about. Okay, so there is a question, is there a mandate for a bachelor's required for these kind of perspective? No, so once you get an MBA, I don't think anybody cares of what bachelor's you've done, but especially if you're looking at US programs, there are some programs that are very keen on having a 4-year, 12 plus 4 kind of a, education system, which is 12 years till 12th, plus 4 years of education in terms of bachelor. However, if like, for example, Macom's has it, quite a few US school has it. UK, Europe, they don't care. Even a 3-year bachelor's is enough for them. US has this 12 plus 4 years for quite a few schools. So if you are somebody who has done like a 3-year bachelor program, like a BSc or a BCom or a BBA or anything of that sort, just write to the school, give a background of your experience and the kind of work you've done, your career progression, and get that clarity. Some schools are not very flexible on it, but some schools are. So, when you are actually thinking of school selecting and things like that, that could be something that you would want to kind of focus on, right? So that will help. 3 plus 2 masters is fine. That's, you don't have to worry about it. Then you already are, you match the criteria that they have, right? So you don't need to worry. Cool. So, all right. So then obviously, like I said, sustainability, all these are also some consulting options. The next is, let's look at healthcare as an option. Another very interesting space is healthcare. Here again, what are the kind of roles? So digital health product manager. Again, every other company is looking at getting into healthcare. There is a lot of, again, with Trump, like look at the UN grad that is happening with Trump not kind of restricting the funding to Harvard just because they are not abiding to his theory or thought process behind what's happening right now. If you look at what Harvard released, as per the news also, was that lot of research and healthcare research is happening at Harvard, and all this funding, 9 billion funding, that is not going to them because of their what do you say, mismatch with their thought process with Trump, is causing them lot of these healthcare innovations and lot of healthcare, like for example, UNC kind of school is the one where polio vaccination and all that was actually created, right? So lot of these colleges are doing a lot of research and lot of innovation around healthcare. So all this federal funding that is not going to them is actually impacting them in that way, is what these schools are talking about, right? I think somewhere the funding will happen. Howard, in some way, maybe federal funding will not happen, but it will come from somewhere. I'm sure Howard has thought through those aspects. But yeah, that is the whole UN cry about, right? That a lot of this research will get impacted because of that. But again, we have 2 years, 3 years from now. I think things will get resolved. Businesses have to kind of figure things out. It cannot prolong it so far. Other aspect of is obviously value-based, care. That is again big in US. If you know all the healthcare systems in US and even in India, it's so different. But now they are looking at different kind of products to come up. The how to kind of look at it more from a design it around the population. What is the kind of need of the requirement of the population and stuff like that. It's also something that people are looking at. AI data science strategy manager, again, GE Healthcare, Microsoft, all these healthcare companies, they are looking at, okay, how do we prioritize AI use cases for governance and frameworks for clinical applications? That's also something that they are looking at. Again, biotech is another space that is growing. So here, what is the kind of R&D that is required? There's a lot of M&A that is happening. So if you guys are, maybe get into a PE, VC space or even investment banking, you will be dealing with a lot of these M&A deals and managing these strategic alliances that happen. Pfizer, GSK, VC-backed biotechs, that's another big space that is happening in India and abroad. Healthcare operations consultant, again, how do we kind of make sure that the EBITDA is good enough and healthy for enterprises and for businesses? What are the kind of optimizing staffing methods that you should use? How do you kind of use lean methods in healthcare systems? So these are also things, and what do you say, challenges or complex challenges that businesses are looking at approaching, and this is where MBA will be required, right? So there are a lot of these kind of roles that you could look at. So when you are actually thinking of pitching to a B school of why you want to do an MBA, and if you already have a good healthcare kind of a background, and if you are already working in something around this, you could pick any of these space to talk about that this is what I'm seeing growing, and this is the kind of challenges I want to be part of. And I see myself doing these kind of things eventually later, right? So you don't need to more from a long term. See, short term goals need to be slightly more clear. I would say more clear, but your long term goals can be a little bit more long term. Like what I mean by long term is it is okay to not have a very clear idea on the long term. You can say either this or that, but your short term goal has to be something that is taking you towards the long term. Right. So those are the things that will be extremely important for you to think through while you're thinking about your story, while you're thinking about what you want to do, during and after an MBA, right? Any questions so far in the healthcare space? No. All right.
Ma'am,
Okay. Sure, please go ahead.
so there's a notion that generally people say regarding like going into management side of the healthcare is that those people who are kind of uh, familiar, let's say maybe the doctors or doctors doing MBA and all that, those people have higher chances of success because they have the idea about their field. What about those people who doesn't have much idea about the healthcare system, but they still want to go into that? Is this notion, how much this notion is true?
So, okay, so let's look at it this way. Now, I agree that somebody who comes with the background has a leverage. So that is true. It's like this, right? If I have spent 10 years or 5 years as a software engineer in a tech industry, and I want to become a product manager after an MBA in a tech firm, obviously I will have that leverage because I know what it takes to create products. I know what escalations people have. I know what is the issue people have. I know what clients face. Because I have worked in the engineering and the tech team of creating these products, I know what are the issues a software engineer has when they are solving a product, priority issue and things like that. So I definitely there is a leverage, and it will be easier easier for you to convince someone if you already have a background, convince someone as in a B school, if you already have a background. Same thing for healthcare. If you already know something about the space, you definitely have a leverage because you can speak that language, right? However, can you get into something different? Yes. Can someone with a completely different background? So I have seen these complete transformation and switches happening where somebody was a tech person and then went into the VC space, or somebody was in the finance space and went into managing delivery, heading delivery and account managing for, larger companies. So, what I'm trying to tell you is with an MBA, these transitions are possible. But remember, if you remember in my other few sessions, I was talking about three things that can change for an MBA, right? Industry, function, and role. Now, all three changing is possible, but it is tough, right? Not many people get this option of changing all the three things, especially when you're looking at a 1-year MBA program. The chances that you will able to switch the industry also completely is possible, but that percentage is small. But function and role, definitely you can change, right? So to answer your question, it is possible. Yes, people who have that background definitely have a leverage, but doesn't mean that there is no possibility. There is still a possibility, but you will have to kind of convince either the B school or the business that is looking at hiring you of why you are the best person for this role, right? Like, for example, I remember there was somebody who got into NYU Stern, and so typically, see, July, August is when your course starts, right? So she went in July, August. She worked in a company which, what was that? She worked for Sprinkler, right? Now, this is a company that creates AI-driven solutions for different kind of things. So I remember one of the projects she told me was that her project was to create a software specifically for, what is that? This thing, yeah. What is that luxury watch thing? What is the most expensive watch? R से शुरू होता है. भूल गई. What is that? Rolex, sorry. Sorry, I forgot Rolex. Okay, so her job was that they created a software for Rolex because Shah Rukh Khan was the ambassador for Rolex, and they had to make sure that every public appearance anywhere online or anywhere in the internet or anywhere in our social media, Shah Rukh Khan has to be seen wearing Rolex only. He cannot be seen wearing any other watch, right? So that is the level of focus that need to have when Rolex is kind of investing in such, big brand ambassadors, right? So, that was the kind of software, she was creating. Now, this is her background. She goes to NYU. August, September is when her course starts. By November, they have to start looking at jobs, right? So they'll go for coffee shops, the coffee meetings, they go for, interviews and stuff like that. They start doing all that. She said by November, December, she already had a job with Morgan in the investment banking space. She had no clue of this. She was a tech person. But NYU and the kind of preparation that she had done in terms of showcasing her smart test in each of these rounds that she had for a Morgan Stanley investment banking kind of a role, she was able to get into an investment banking. So to answer your question, it is possible, but it is really tough, and it is, something that very few people are able to completely change, but it is possible, right? So that's something that, and that is the beauty of an MBA also. However, one thing that I want to tell you is, see, there are two ways to look at it, right? One thing is what you pitch while you're writing your application and what you get to eventually. What you have to always focus on is that whatever you pitch has to always be something that strengthens your application to the, it has to strengthen your application. So you cannot say that I want to become an investment banker while I was working as a software engineer in a sprinkler kind of a firm, because there is nothing that I have in my background that showcases my inclination to investment banking or anything to do with finance. So when you say something like this while you're applying with nothing to back it up with, it doesn't fall well with the admission committee or the B schools, right? So always pick stories that is going to strengthen your application. What you do later is nobody cares. You can obviously get into anything you want. Nobody's going to say that, hey, Shrikant ne to application mein investment, something else likha tha and now he's applying for investment banking role. That's not going to happen, right? So you don't need to worry about that. But we always have to focus on a story that strengthens our application and not weakens, right? So just keep that in mind in terms of how you want to pitch yourself when you're applying to these B schools. All right?
But thank you.
Perfect. All right. And next is sustainability, another very hot and happening market right now. Different kind of roles in different sectors in the sustainability sector also. Europe is big on this whole CSRD kind of space, right? Which is on compliance related to sustainability and relative directives. So here what happens is they want to make sure, so when these companies, so when they have an ESG goal or a net zero goal target, they also make sure that every vendor, every supplier they work with is also someone who's kind of adhering to their sustainability goals. There are ESG managers whose job is to make sure that when they pick up or when they onboard the right kind of people or the right kind of vendors and partners for their businesses, they are also vetting them on all these sustainability parameters that they have for themselves. So that is one thing. Sustainability reporting leads. How do you audit? How do you manage your data pipelines? Different kind. Again, this is in fact, India is space like climate tech and all, right? India is a lot more behind than where Europe and US is in terms of sustainability and the ESG aspects of it. So a lot of obviously India is also catching up, and we also have like a net zero target by 2030, 2070 or something like that. We have some target around that. So that's also something that we are looking at. A lot of green fintechs. I spoke about green bonds. You have Adani Green. There's so many companies that are coming up. They're big on focusing on, green energy stuff. Even larger companies like JSW in India, or even companies like NTPC, they are having a completely BPCL. Even these PSU kind of companies are creating their own green energy sustain in branches and stuff like that. So that's also something that is happening even in India as in parallel. So you might want to even understand, okay, what's happening, if this is an interest area for you, or this is something that you can map to in terms of what you bring to the table. You might want to look at, okay, what are the kind of different roles I can get into post MBA? What are the kind of companies that are working on this? Can I are they, obviously they should be hiring MBAs from specific schools that you're aiming for. What are the kind of roles in this timeline that you are applying and preparing for your GMAT? Try to reach out to people who are in this space. Try and understand, read up different articles and in this space, if this interests you and if this is a space that you want to get to, right? You might want to understand what's happening in this space, so that, like I said in the beginning itself, all this is because you need to have depth in whatever you are speaking, right? So this is no more an interview that you're going to face where they are going to say, okay, tell me why MBA. You ratify one answer, then they will say, okay, why the school? Then there is a ratify answer. It doesn't work like that. You have to go a lot more in depth in terms of telling why, why it makes sense for you, what do you bring to the table. There's a lot more things that you have to talk about when you're looking at this, right? One second, there's a question here. Okay, so I'm just looking at how are early stage startup experiences typically perceived in MBA outcomes, especially when it's conscious choice by me over a big firm. Over a big firm right after college. I'm a FinTech PM having 2.5 years experience planning. Perfect. So see, it's all about how you pitch, right? Okay, so I'll just tell you where this will be considered, and where this will be an important point uh, so there is nothing wrong in working for an early stage startup. I feel the kind of experience you have working with an early stage startup is humongous. The multiple hats that you have, the challenges that you face, everything is completely different when you're looking at a early stage startup, right? So that's definitely your learning, your experience, which is much much better than someone who's working in a very process driven large company. You're one among the 4 lakh or 40,000 people that are there, right? So obviously the kind of value that you will bring in with the kind of experience that you've had and the way you say talk about it will definitely be of value. However, what you also have to understand is the higher you go in terms of ranking, the higher you go in terms of very competitive schools that you're applying. And I'm talking about maybe the Ivy Leagues or the M7s, right? Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, Kellogg, Columbia, these kind of schools. What happens is here, the competition or the people that you're kind of competing with is, people who are as good as you or better than you, right? Maybe they are coming from really top schools. Maybe they are from the IITs or NITs or bits of India, where that only there is one level of intelligence and an aptitude that is there even to get into those schools. So obviously that also gives them exposure to a lot more complex roles that they have worked in, which also gives them a similar and a more competitive experience that they have. So what also happens is, I'm not saying that to apply to all top schools, you need to have a blue chip company or you need to have a top company or a top school on your resume. I'm just trying to tell you that you will be competing with them. So be conscious that you also have to, because see, there is no formula to it. No B school is saying that I will take only people from IITs, I will take only people from top schools, I will top companies, I will only take people with so many so GPA. No B school is saying that, because that's not how they look at it. But what you have to understand is, when you are picking those really competitive schools, be conscious of the fact that you will be competing with them. Which also means, see, I always look at it this way, that you can have multiple aspirations. One aspirations, you say, Shri, I want to get into only top schools. I have a very great career progression, and this is how I want to plan it. If I don't get into these schools, I will not do an MBA. Perfect. There's nothing wrong in that. Or you say, Shri, I think that there are some roles that I can get through from multiple ways. One is obviously a top school, which is my ambitious option. I want to aim for that. But I also want to have some reachable and safe options, which can also help me get to the same roles and same profiles that I'm looking at. I would want to evaluate those also, because obviously there I have an edge because I have a better profile and a more competitive profile, right? So I want you also to think more from that perspective. There is no formula to getting into a top school, right? Trust me, if I had a formula, abhi tak to publish ho gaya hota, and I would have said 100% guarantee to Harvard, right? Nobody can say that, and anybody says that, they're lying, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that competition will be there. There is nothing like good and bad in terms of your profile. It's completely based on if you can showcase leadership. I'm repeating, leadership, career progression, if you can showcase learnability, if you can showcase that you have shown growth, those are the things that will really matter. So your complete focus on your pitch is, what are the examples I can give to showcase that? Who can be the recommender I can pick who will say really good things about me? How much of depth I have or I need to have by the time I apply to the school, or at least for an interview, apply, I would say, because your essays should bring in that quality or the clarity, right? So those are the things you need to be, and it can be only on your space. You don't need to know everything. It can be your space, it can be your comfort level, but you need to have a little bit more deep dive insight to what you know, so that at least if you are aiming for really top schools and competitive schools, you have an edge, right? So to answer your question here, uh, Aditya, it is possible. It is definitely, if you are able to showcase the high impact initiatives, it is definitely possible. You just have to kind of balance out what are the kind of schools you choose. And then, you'll have to intelligently pick these aspect when you're applying to school, because by your experience also will be calculated by the time you join the course. So if you're looking at any international school, your experience is calculated till August next year, August 2026 next year. If you're applying to Indian schools, your experience will be calculated till March 31st next year. So 2026, March 31st is how much they will look at more from your experience perspective. So even look at it more from a timeline, in that angle. All right. I hope that's clear, Aditya, for you also and others too. Clear? Perfect. Perfect. Now let's look at the other things in this whole sustainability sector, right? Carbon markets manager, green finance product associate. Again, I mean, you can Google all these. There's, a little, you can go slightly more deep dive into these aspects. If this interests you, they are very interesting aspects, by the way. You can kind of look at it. You'll get a more good understanding. Another thing is entrepreneurship. A lot of people also look at how they can work with founders or how they can work in a more entrepreneurship domain. I know people who have done an MBA with a business plan in mind. They were very clear that they want to, obviously that number is mildly small. Mostly people like, I worked with someone this year who was, if Navratna Tel in India, it is almost 60% of the market in the pain relief segment. Its competitor is something called भूल गई, some Himgange. That's another product that's again a pain relief segment. Their target market is very different. Their target market is all these lower income strata audience. That is his target market. So he was the guy. So this company, his dad's company or his family business, they manage the 40% of the market, and their competitors obviously Navratna Tel. And he was talking about how his need of doing an MBA, yeah, Himgange, his need of doing an MBA is completely to build his business, expand his business, focus on, looking at what can he do as a startup founder. Because what also happened is they were looking at very organic growth, very old style of management, again, not very organized sector. Even their marketing, strategies were very old style. So his entire focus on how he wants to focus on doing an MBA was completely about pitching, saying that this is what I want to get to. I want to expand. I want to look at better ways of supply chain. I want to look at better ways of marketing, right? So entrepreneurs also look at it this way. So his plan is to go with a business plan of how he would value or how he would utilize a good MBA program to get to his next step in his own business, right? So that's something that he's looking at as a startup founder. And in today's world, it is so easy to, in tech especially, it is so easy to create your own products. If you see that there's a problem in the market, there is obviously something that you can actually contribute to. There are roles like entrepreneur in residence where, there are companies where you have an option to work on products yourself, and you are pretty much taking care of the entire ideation to conception to execution of those particular projects. That is entrepreneur and residence kind of role. Chief of staff roles where you support founders to plan their OKRs, to plan their financial models, manage the talent pipelines. That is also something that people look at. Growth product managers, that's also something that people is another role where your entire focus is that how do you kind of scale your company to the next level, Series B, IPO level, or whatever level you're looking at, right? And then obviously in VC firms, if you're looking at, in-house as a studio director kind of a thing, recruiting CEOs. Again, the space is huge. And why these roles also require an MBA? Because it becomes important for people to have a very very strong business mindset. It requires you to understand finance. It requires you to understand operations. It requires you to understand market stuff. So these are the things that is very important for you to know, right? So that's what is definitely required, when you're looking at, and that's why an MBA becomes a very important thing. So say, for example, this can be a long-term plan, right? Or even if you're looking at it as a short-term plan, you will have, or a short-term goal after an MBA, you might want to show somewhere that you have already done this in a certain level in your prior what you're leveraging to get to that role, right? Especially more from at this stage perspective when we are looking at pitching yourself for an MBA program, right? So those are the kind of things that you kind of look at more from an entrepreneurship perspective. Any questions so far? Any questions?
Ma'am, nothing regards to this, but one thing on the experience you have mentioned, right? So the amount of experience that counts till the time of joining March 31st or the application time? I just missed it.
So, okay. So say for example, when you're applying for the 2026 intake, they will consider your experience for Indian schools. They will consider your experience till March 31st, 2026. Okay, you might
Okay.
be applying in August. Indian schools deadlines are in August, September timeline, right? But you will still be your experience. They will assume that your experience till March 31st, 2026. Same for foreign schools, though you will be applying this year, like R1 will be in September, R2 will be in December, January timeframe. Your experience will be calculated till August 2026 next year, right? So that's how they are looking at it more from an experience perspective.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Sure. All right. So now I hope, more from these five things that I spoke about: healthcare, finance, tech. We spoke about ESG, entrepreneurship. So all these spaces, there are different kind of roles. So when you start researching or when you start thinking about what are the kind of roles you want to get to, you might want to think in this direction, that I'm coming from this kind of a background. This is my career progression so far. What are the kind of roles I can get into? If I'm specifically looking at US as a geography, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the challenges I might face? You might also want to identify that, okay, these are some blind spots that you already know you have, or these are the things that you would want to work on with an MBA, right? So these are the things that I would want you to kind of think through while you are planning your entire next steps, right? So that's what I wanted you to focus on. I'll just give you a brief. I have just pulled out 3 or 4 profiles over here. So this is Shashank. Shashank went to Wharton. His background was that he worked with a Chinese VC firm. I think this is 3 years ago. Chinese VC firm. And in fact, he was one of the guys who had already also evaluated the term sheet for Byju's and Byju's when Byju's was there, right? So he had evaluated the term sheet for Byju's, and his entire pitch while he was writing his application was around the mobility sector, right? Right now, he's working with Bain in the technology, AI, and a private equity kind of operation space. That's his journey, post Wharton. Then I have Gautam. So Gautam was our student, then also our mentor. He's right now, why is this double? Okay, my bad on the typo part. He's a principal product manager at Azure. So his career journey after an MBA, he worked with Microsoft, he worked with Intuit. Now he's working, so he's currently working with Microsoft. Before that, he worked with LinkedIn, he worked with Intuit, again, fintech. Now his entire focus is on creating products around using AI ML, as a Azure AI PM, right? So this is something that Gautam, he's an MBA from ISB. That has been his background. So he's post MBA, it's been quite some time he's done his MBA. Ritika is an MBA from Foster. She's currently managing the go-to-market strategy for specific aspects of the Amazon business in Mexico. Again, she graduated, I think, last year. So currently she's with Amazon. Then I also have one more person, which is Akshat. He did his MBA from Rotman. He's now a lead product manager at Google. If you look at it, his focus is on marketplace governance, partner insight, product-led goal, deals, interns, incentives in the Google Cloud Marketplace team, right? So this is, these are some roles. So again, Rotman, I pick Rotman. She's Foster, which is not she's top 20, top 25 school. ISB, this is Wharton. I have one more. I have Vrinda, again in the sustainability space. She worked with JSW, in the climate tech space. She was very clear that she wanted to get into climate tech only. So now she's working as an investment executive in this company where she's looking at geographies like Southeast Asia, Africa, and all that. Right. So she's an MBA from London Business School. Right. So what I'm trying to tell you is what I told you before. These are the kind of roles people are getting into after. So Brinda graduated last year in March, right? So currently she's, working in this domain, right? So yeah, so I think that's about it more from how I would want you to look at it now. Why I feel I want you all to start thinking now. I know most of you are in the GMAT space. Again, what I want you to start thinking about is just start thinking about it, right? Because see, it is very easy, and this is something I tell everyone that it's very easy to write essays now. And essays will be the last part of your entire, if you look at it more from an application process, the outcome is, but what to write in the essays becomes extremely important for you at this point in time. Which means I'm not saying that put in 10 hours a day or 2 hours a day or anything like that. I'm saying spend it 2-3 hours a week, just 2-3 hours a week. And this is something that I understand it is tough to manage work, personal life, professional life, everything together. I know. However, you have taken this, you've started this journey. You are sitting here on a Saturday. You have, been here for 1 hour, 20 minutes already. We have discussed what are the kind of roles that you can get into, post MBA. You have a good idea and a starting base to start thinking about it. Please make sure that you put in enough time to thinking through it becomes very important, right? So there is a lot of competition. Honestly, top schools mein competition will always be there. So if somebody says last year come competition tha, I wished I would have applied last year. Now it is more competition. ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है. In top schools, there is always competition. So if you are applying to any top 20, 30 schools in India, abroad, anywhere, there's always going to be competition, right? So your job is to make sure that how do you make the best about your profile. So don't go into that thing that, oh, now there is too much competition or there is less competition, I'll apply to school. I mean, all that is, just to make you feel better or make you feel worse. Top school will always have competition, whether this year or next year. That is one. Second is, it will be very important for you to bring in, clear quality, because I have seen, see, a high GMAT score will still not guarantee you an admit, right? And I understand that, you are at the stage where, you are putting your best on the GMAT thing, but a high GMAT score will definitely improve your chances of an admit, right? So your entire focus is that. I know it is difficult, that, I wrote a LinkedIn post also a couple of days ago, and this is something was based on my discussion with Devmitra, where she was saying that it is understandable that when you don't know, when you're not sure of what you're really going to get into, it can be demotivating sometimes, that okay, score acha nahi aa raha hai, ya your accuracy is not improving, but you'll have to be at it, right? Just make sure, just be at it. You have to put in your best, because the only option other than doing what you're already doing right now, which is putting your best, is to not do anything and stay at where you are, right? And the reason why you are putting in this best is to get out of that status quo. So just focus on, making sure you put in your best. It's just a matter of 4 or 5 months. And you might want to kind of prioritize it. See, I'm not saying keep put in your, just if you prioritize it, no, that's all, your problem is solved, right? Once you prioritize it, everything will fall into place. This priority part is what you need to kind of focus on. Starting early is better, because it will kind of, it's like project management, right? There might be some days where you will not do anything. So starting early will help you kind of include all these buffers and delays that you will have. So I would any day suggest you should start early. Round one deadlines in September, October. So if you're looking at round one, yes, it might be a good time for you to get started. And early preparation will also improve your chances. So that's also something that I would suggest you would want to look at. Here is a typical timeline. So we are at April end, obviously May. So research schools, plan your GMAT prep, draft your goals, start thinking of what schools you want to pick. If you're very sure you're applying in 2026, then it's a good time to start. Maybe, I completely understand that some people say that let me see whether I will be able to crack my GMAT, then I will figure out. Take a mock test, try to see how much more to go. If you be in this uncertainty, it will be very difficult for you to plan. So depending on what stage you are, maybe if you have just started, take another month, take a mock test in 1.5 months, so that you get to know an assessment of, what is the improvement that is happening, so that you can also plan. Not everybody needs to apply to an M7. We can plan based on budget, profile, preference of geography. There'll be so many things that you would have, so you can plan around that. And then this typically should be the timeline that you should look at when you're planning, right? Finalize your essays by July, get your school list, get your recommendations in place, review all your materials, prepare for submissions. All this is something, if you're looking at round one, I'm putting round one right now, so these could be some things that you could look at. Right. Okay, so I have a question here. It says, working in a public sector bank as an officer for 5 years, don't want to get into core finance or core banking as the PSB culture has ruined it for me. How can I get into an innovative side of these fields without any technical background? I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering, planning to do an MBA in India only. Perfect. There are a lot of examples where people have worked with Canara Bank. People have, in fact, I have this year only somebody who's got into Canara, I am Calcutta and I am Ahmedabad, and I am Bangalore, all three from PSU sectors. Again, either of Canara Bank or SBI or any of these nationalized banks. I understand that, your pitch can completely be around the scale of which you deal with things. Plus, when you're working with these public sector banks, you have seen the both side of things, right? When you start your career, you are initially put into some villages and all where you have to deal with people who do not understand. It's not financial literacy. You don't even have literate people you have to deal with, right? So that is an experience you're coming with. Scale that you're looking at, that is an experience you're coming with. What also happens is you have to talk about it, that one aspect of it is dealing with people who have financial literacy, one aspect of it is dealing with people who have not even literate. They don't understand when you talk about deadlines and timelines and EMI timelines and stuff like that. So dealing with that is a different skill altogether. This is your learning. Right now, coming with a technical background perspective, say for example, when you look at these PSU sectors, they also have a lot of products, right? They have insurance-based products, they have loan-based products, they are loans for farmers, they have loans for investment for small and medium businesses. They have so many products. Now somebody is also thinking and ideating on what are these products that these PSU sectors can take. Also the kind of scale that you have to kind of implement all these schemes that government is coming up with, yojana, what is that, some yojana scheme and all that, Pradhan Mantri Yojana scheme and all that. It becomes a very important job of these nationalized banks to go and promote these schemes to the local people, right? So those are some things, that is something that you will have to focus on, right? So those are the strengths, and you pitch to a B school saying that this is the background I'm coming at, this is the kind of challenges that I've faced. If you put me in a corporate sector, these are the things I can do, right? So it's all about how you tell your story and how you narrate your whole thought process, right? For Indian schools with 9 years experience, no, absolutely not. In fact, you technically qualify for all the top 5 Indian schools that you apply to, whether it is ISB, IIM, ABCL. Greater than 9 years, I have had somebody with 14 years experience this year, 10 years experience who have gotten. Maybe the number of people with so much high experience is small, but number of people applying with high experience is also small. So you are still in a smaller pool. So it's definitely, there is a chance. It's not that there is no chance at all. Tough, not tough is completely based on competition. It's based on the kind of school you apply to, right? So that's pretty much, how it works when you're looking at these schools. So yeah, so this is my final slide. Any other question, any questions? So this is how I would want you to kind of plan it. In the next 60 days, maybe plan your GMAT, GRE, whatever test you are looking at. Start thinking of why you want to do an MBA. Look at your leadership achievements, accomplishments. If you've attended the last session, remember I showed you this tool that I'm going to kind of, share it with the students I work with specifically for now, because that's an MVP stage, where we are, collating all the stories in one place so that it's easier for us to come up with the right kind of, essays when we start thinking about writing the essays in the end. Attend webinars, attend alumni meets. There are tons and tons of this happening. It's really, really helpful in this process. And obviously, start thinking of what you will want to pitch and how do you want to outline it, right? Any other question? Can we reach out? Yes, of course, Anushka. Please reach out to Likesh or someone. They'll share my calendar. Please book a slot and we'll definitely, every capable student definitely can have one call with me for sure. Right. All right. Cool. So that's about it. Any questions? Anything? Happy to answer. You can. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was different than what you already know. I wanted to make sure that everyone who's already attending these sessions before, and for the people who are new, also get a little bit more about how you need to start thinking. Tomorrow's session is also going to be amazing. Don't miss it. It is something that will really, really help you even in your MBA journey and even now. So please attend the session by Arun. Any questions, anything, please unmute yourself, ask, feel free. We have time. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Swapnil. Perfect. So yeah, so every session that I do, I'll make sure I will bring in some level of difference, focus that I truly believe. Because you know what happens every year, I have worked with so many people that I know that what are the gaps that each of you face. And my job is to make sure that, and we have realized that it is very important that people who are in the GMAT journey should know this, because that's how we can motivate you to do well on the GMAT also. And this becomes a very important factor for us. Because for us as a goal, we want more people to take the GMAT and apply, which becomes a very important factor, more for our own KPIs that we have internally. Which Indian colleges accept GMAT scores are the IIM? So, okay, so 1 year. So, Dhruv, since you're looking at MIM, you might want to look at the PGP-YL program by ISB. I think that is something that you could look at in India. There are 50 other programs. If you just search for schools in India that accept GMAT scores, you'll find a list. There's an MBA.com list you will find. Maybe not the top ones, but there are a lot of schools that accept GMAT scores. For people with more than 3 + 4 years experience, you can apply to all the 1 year programs that IIMs have, which is the ePGP by IIM Bangalore, the PGPX by IIM Ahmedabad, the IPMX by IIM Calcutta, Lucknow, and then IIM Calcutta also has a PGP section. So those are the sessions those are the 1 year programs that people with 4 years plus, 5 years plus experience can apply for Indian programs, apart from obviously ISB. But Dhruv, for you, it is more like ISB, PGP, YL would be something if you are someone with 0 to 2 years experience, right? Thank you, Sham. Thank you, Sapnil. All right, so I guess that's about it from me today. If you don't have any other questions, feel free to reach out, and would be happy to help you guys. Any other question, anything? No? Okay. Then thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Lovely talking to you. All the best. Thank you, Dhruv. Have a great weekend. See you tomorrow in the session at same time, 10 o'clock. We will plan the DI session soon, so we'll let you know. So yeah. All right, cool. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Thank you, Shweta. Thank you, Lavnish. Thank you, Divya. Bye-bye. Thank you, Abhishek.